I'm just going to go through a little bit of housekeeping before I start the introduction. So can you all please make sure that your microphone is muted unless you're speaking? We'd love for you to keep your cameras on because it's really lovely to see all of you. We don't get to do that very often, but we are going to be filming the session, recording the session, and then we will be sharing the film on YouTube and via some of our networks. So if you don't want to be recorded and on screen, then please do feel free to turn your camera off. And the last little bit of housekeeping is if you do have any questions for our speakers, can you please put them in the chat, and we will try and get to all of your questions as we go through the afternoon. So my name's Michelle Alford. I'm Director of Libraries, Archives and Culture in Hull, and I'm also Chair of the National Culture and Creativity Offer Group. The National Culture and Creativity Offer Group is a group that is made up of the cultural representatives from each of the regions, and we all come together to share learning about what's happening in our regions and to look at what we can do to better support people that are working in our public libraries around England, Wales and Northern Ireland. I'm just going to give you a little bit of an update of where we are with the Culture and Creativity Offer Group, because I'm conscious that we don't often get to share information and talk to one another. So at the moment, the Culture and Creativity Offer Group is working on looking at a refresh of the offer, and that's part of a reset of the universal offers as a whole. So we've recently undertaken a survey that went out to all heads of service, and I'm sure that some of you got opportunity to feed into that survey, because what we were trying to find out is, so what does the culture and creativity offer mean to you? What is it that you need from the culture and creativity offer to be able to better do your job and to open up opportunities for your customers? So that survey went out, and then we had a planning day in April where we were looking at the results of that survey and starting to look at the themes. So the people that took part in that planning day were all of the regional leads that are part of the Culture and Creativity Offer Group. And some of the themes that started to materialise were looking at music in libraries and the music in libraries offer, looking at the public library contribution to cultural strategies. We're finding that many local authorities recognise the value of creative industries and are putting that front and centre of part of their economic regeneration plans. So there were a number of authorities that were wanting to share learning and around that. Looking at cultural incubators, there are a number that are happening around the country, and people were wanting to know more about them and how we might be able to support them in other parts of the country. So we've got a fantastic example in Solihull, for example. And then looking at training and information sharing, particularly around programming and planning, and hence the webinar today. That was one of the things that we felt that we could do quite quickly from the feedback that we received from all of you. And then the main areas of work that we're currently working on as part of the Culture and Creativity Offer. We have the Black British Ballet project that many of you are participating in, and we're seeing some really innovative and fantastic work that's happening around the country as part of the Black British Ballet project. That was a project with Oxygen Arts that the Culture and Creativity Offer Group worked with Oxygen Arts to secure funding from the Heritage Lottery Fund so that we could offer some really high quality workshops activities, performances in our public libraries, the sort of thing that we might not normally be able to offer because it would be unaffordable for each of us unless we were all working together. And Heritage Lottery Fund were really keen to be able to support this. They could see the power of engagement that public libraries have. So that's ongoing at the moment, and we will conclude that in October, November this year. The other piece of work that the group are currently working on is reviewing music in public libraries, and that's all aspects of music in public libraries. So we're working with DCMS, the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, Arts Council England, and IAML, which is the International Association of Music Libraries, to look at what is the public library contribution to music in the music industry. So looking at the music collections that we all have, from the single copy scores, from the collections of orchestral sets, to some authorities are loaning out musical instruments. So looking at the music collections and loans that we might be offering, and gathering information about activities and workshops that are happening in libraries. So the gigs that many people offer, some working in partnership with Get It Loud in Libraries, and others organise them independently or with local promoters. Looking at the other types of events that public libraries are offering, and also the workshops and the learning sessions that people are offering in public libraries. And many libraries are also offering branch libraries and rooms in central libraries up as rehearsal spaces. So we want to be able to gather the information around that and then look at, so how do we collectively share that and make sure that the contribution that we make to the music industry is known in the right circles. And when I say the right circles, I particularly mean the circles that our funders move in. So that's where we are at the moment in terms of the Culture and Creativity Offer Group. Your regional lead will be able to, they attend the meetings on a quarterly basis. They do feedback through the heads of service networks, and they'll be more than happy to listen to any exciting ideas that you've got, or to be able to promote the things that you're doing. So make sure that all of that fantastic work that you're doing within your service is highlighted. Put it forward through your head of service to share at regional meetings, and then we can get that message out on a wider basis. So I started off by saying that one of the things that we felt that we could do was to action what people were asking for in terms of training and awareness raising around programming and planning. So I'm going to stop waffling and I'm going to hand over to Natalie Jerd from Creative Arts East, who's going to talk to us about the Rekindle project and programming arts in public libraries. So Natalie, welcome, and I'll let you introduce yourself and the rest of the speakers.
Thanks. Thank you, Michelle. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. It's lovely to be here with you. So just a tiny bit of context, and then I'm going to give you a whistle-stop tour of what the Rekindle programme is and is trying to achieve, and then hand over to three fantastic speakers who will sort of bring that to life a little bit. So yes, Creative Arts East is the organisation that I work for, and we are committed to improving quality of life through creativity, and we largely want to do that by opening up equity of access to culture in rural and underserved communities. And that's a principle of rural touring. We are one of 25 odd organisations right across the country that devolve cultural decision making to rural and underserved communities, usually volunteers, but sometimes publicans or school PTAs, and indeed libraries. We work very closely with Norfolk Library Service, with Suffolk Library Service, and we that's usually on a very sort of transactional basis, but libraries are really important to us because often, I mean, you all know this, libraries will reach people that don't cross the threshold of an arts centre, don't cross the threshold even of a village hall sometimes. And so we have set about over the last decade trying to really support the strategic development of partnership between arts organisations and library services locally to our region and across the country. Some of that includes being commissioned by the Arts Council South East region to conduct an inquiry into touring in libraries. And the results of that were a report to the Arts Council and a publicly available report that you can access, and I'll try and drop the links in later. But we very much found that what library managers, library assistants needed was a little bit of what the rural touring world already provides: support, skill, knowledge about artists that are of quality and can make work that is fit for small non-arts, non-traditional art spaces. So, you know, they come already rigged, they're able to work within a postage stamp of a performance space, and they understand about that sort of they're not really being any sort of they're eyeballing their audience, you know, they're right up front with their audience. But what they told us was they wanted to find out who those artists were, how to liaise with them properly, how to market them when they would come. And so we set about collaboration with Libraries Connected, and we worked with them in partnership to develop the first iteration of the Learning Pool event management module. And we have begun a process of Arts Council funded program called Rekindle. And so I'm going to share my screen. As soon as I share my screen, I'm going to lose sight of you. So please holler at me if you need to sort of stick your hand in the air or tell me that everything's gone horribly wrong. I'm going to try to do this. Can you see that in full screen mode, colleagues?
Yes, we can.
Great. Okay. So Rekindle is about getting creative in libraries. There is an element of action research here. It is about hosting real life creative events and activities in library spaces, but really as a means to test and empower library workforce and the creative and artistic workforce to understand what the barriers and challenges and indeed what the opportunities are. It's a national partnership project between library services and touring organisations. It's led by Creative Arts East, but really in really close collaborative partnership with other arts organisations like ours and 5 library services. My PowerPoint is wordy. I'm not going to talk to every word in this PowerPoint, but we will, I believe, be sharing this with you afterwards. So what you don't hear from me, you can certainly read at your own leisure. I was also unable to turn off the animation, so I'm going to flick through the stuff that's less important. But the vision for Rekindle, I should say it's a 3-year project. It started in April 2023. It was actually born straight out of our Southeastern Libraries touring inquiry and the Learning Pool module work that we had undertaken. But the pandemic really sort of just put an end to that. And we picked it up when we realized that coming out of the pandemic, the rural touring sector was perhaps some of the first to start presenting work again, and indeed libraries were the first to be ready to receive. So it really felt like now's the time to talk about Rekindle. It's about library spaces consistently offering exciting, relevant and high quality programs of varied and bespoke creative activity. So not just touring live performance, but really testing what forms of creativity are sustainable in a library space, to engage diverse and, importantly, returning beneficiaries. We have some aims. They are to explore and co-produce. They are to develop library workforce who are confident and importantly, most importantly, with the partnerships that they need to develop ongoing provision, to support artists to make work for and with library venues and their audiences, to reach audiences who might be considered less frequent attenders of traditional arts and cultural spaces, and to share learning and success across the country. So, you know, quite a set of aims there to achieve in 3 years, but we are powering forward and making good progress. There are 5 regional partnerships. So this is a sort of in the spirit of rural touring and that sort of devolved decision making to hyper local partners. Rekindle works in the same way. Creative Arts East is overseeing the national programme and leads the national programme, but we have devolved decision making to our 5 partners in each area, and I'll tell you a bit more about those in a minute. Overall, we're looking to programme 300 activities across the programme, offer 8 workforce skills sharing and learning events, train 900 library and creative sector professionals, not some directly, some indirectly, and provide artist employment days, 400 plus. We're looking to work in library spaces of at least 25 communities and enable over 22,000 digital and direct interactions with the public through creativity. So our 5 partnership locations, oh, it's like a drum roll, this is where the animation works, is in Medway Library Service, who are working with rural touring organisation Applause, who are based in Kent. Sandwell Library Service, who are working with Black Country Touring, another rural touring organisation over in the West Country. Buckinghamshire Library Service, working with Farnham Maltings, who are based in Farnham, funnily enough. Blackburn with Darwin Library Service, who are working with Spot On Lancashire, and Spot On are with us today to talk about programming. And Norfolk Library Service with us at Creative Arts East. It's really, we're an Arts Council national portfolio organisation, and it's really important to us that everything that we do both benefits our local relationships and the regional pathways to engagement, but also that the work that we do impacts and includes and makes better the national picture for equity of access to culture. So this is a really important and meaningful programme for us. So what's working? In Norfolk, I can tell you, but I can also tell you that our experience in Norfolk is not dissimilar to the rest of the country. So I feel sort of confident to share with you a little bit about what's happening in Norfolk, because our colleagues are in varying ways experiencing the same thing. We are holding programming meetings with the culture librarian and individual library managers. So that is Creative Arts East's touring coordinator and touring assistants, and myself as the director, and our communications officer, who's also here with us today to talk about marketing, meeting regularly with the library service workforce. And that's the point of Rekindle. As I said, it is about delivery of activities as a sort of an action learning approach, but really the value is in the time spent in the thinking space, the strategic development of partnership, and not all of us trying to be jack of all of the trades. You know, the rural touring world and the arts world, we're really great at fundraising, we're producers, we understand about event management, and library workforce, you know, they know about engaging with people, they understand about the health and well-being agendas. They are so skilled in offering space and place to people that very many of our arts and culture counterparts could never dream of reaching. We've offered workshops and performances for children and young people, and increasingly for older people as well and adults. We lead on the marketing and ticketing support for our library service. They found that that was a really beneficial offer that we could make for them. We have explored free and varying ticket prices, and we are increasingly offering pay what you can decide ticket models, which is working fantastically well. And there is a lot of reticence around the country in libraries offering costed creative opportunities. And what we're finding through the Rekindle research is that actually people come if they've paid, and they don't mind paying small amounts if you can offer them differing amounts that they can contribute. We provide check-in video calls and frequently asked questions documents with artists. And as a result, in Norfolk, we've developed new partnership commissions with the library service, namely through Know Your Neighbourhood funding, which has developed jobs clubs, bereavement cafes and stay and play sessions, which have taken a creative angle, and also through dedicated migrant communities work, which came through Ukraine support funding, actually, to host a number of bespoke activities for the migrant communities agenda and the Ready team in the county, but also through a beautiful poetry exchange. We commissioned 2 brand new poems in partnership with the National Centre for Writing, with whom we share a base in Norwich, and through the UNESCO City of Literature network across the world, we translated those into another 5 languages and shared them in every single library and remote mobile library service across the county, and invited people to present their own words of welcome to welcome visitors and new communities to our county. So that is a whistle-stop tour of what we want to do and a bit about what we're doing in Norfolk. What's next? We are 2 years into our 3-year project. We have just under now 12 months left to think about how we develop and present training opportunities that have come through dedicated surveying of library staff and artists. You know, what do they need to really land this in their space, in their service, and how can we support rolling that out across the country? What we know is that commissioning, programming, marketing, and day-to-day logistics are the biggest skills gaps, but Rekindle, I'm pleased to say, is improving those regularly. We are undertaking storytelling evaluation to understand the journey travelled for the professional workforce, and their sort of shifts in awareness and their own sense of value of creativity in the library space, and their awareness of what it takes to make it possible. We're considering the legacy. We're working very closely with Arts Council to really understand how the Rekindle model of close collaboration and skills sharing might be replicated across other parts of the country, or indeed the entire country. That's the dream. And we're looking about how we can extend the ambition of what's possible in libraries. So thrilled to hear Michelle talking about all of those very many other opportunities that are going on. And my goal for this next 12 months and my colleagues is to really work out how we can align our library services with those. So just to touch on training in CPD, because that is why we're here, and it is the biggest reason that Rekindle exists, and our biggest sort of mission is to improve the confidence and competency of the workforce around creativity in libraries, both the library workforce and the creative workforce. And that's in terms of the freelance artist workforce and the organisations who would support that employment. In 23, we surveyed all of the library staff as part of those 5 partnerships, and we found that majority, good news, the majority felt that they were delivering creativity successfully, which is great. 5%, however, felt that they were not delivering it successfully. In fact, that they were delivering unsuccessfully on the creativity agenda. 2 years in, 100% of those workforce resurveyed are now saying they're delivering successfully. It's ranging on what they consider to be successful, but the important thing is that there is a shift, and that is an important shift. Also, out of 10, from a scale of 1 to 10, library staff said that they rated creativity as important on a scale of 9.05. I don't know what that 05 is, but now it's 9.62. So again, we're seeing a positive shift in the direction. And that's to do with, anecdotally, we're hearing, those figures, they're a bit meaningless without the anecdotal evidence, but that evidence is about being able to see the start and the finish, and being able to confidently know who to ask or how to imagine creativity in their library spaces, and and to not see it as just a box that is completely unachievable, but to begin to understand the range of ways of being creative in a library space, and being confident to ask the question. So yeah, confidence in the key areas that were identified for training has increased across the spectrum, but there continues to be a need for support with artist liaison, programming, marketing, and on-the-day logistics. So what we really don't want to do, what we're committed to not doing as part of Rekindle, is to reinvent wheels. We're not interested in designing new training opportunities that already exist. So we're trying to pool lots of different training opportunities and guides into one place. And part of that is providing talking heads from experts in the field who can, you can have a cup of tea on your break and listen to a 15-minute talking head from somebody. So I'm really pleased to have 3 colleagues who have presented talking heads. I believe you've all had access to those, and you will continue to have access to those. And they're here to give you a quick rundown of what those talking heads sort of highlights are. We're going to start with the brilliant Melissa Matthews from Suffolk Libraries, and she's going to tell us about the work of commissioning creative artists in your library. Over to you, Melissa.
Hello. Yeah, so I think it's really important to sort of flag early on. I think libraries inherently are incredibly humble, and which always really frustrates me, because we are the last bastion of shared community space. So in terms of why it's important to have that cultural offer in libraries, is that, like as Natalie said earlier, like we hold this really interesting sort of space between that kind of wider kind of cultural offer, but also like that first stepping stone into those experiences. Libraries traditionally engage those lower engaged audience groups. So of the 4 lower engaged audience groups, as part of that audience agencies kind of sort of demographic data, traditional arts venues engage 18%, libraries engage 38%. So we really need to take up our space on that podium as that important cog in terms of the growth of the local cultural ecology. And a really big part of that is how we engage and work with local organisations, local professionals, and specifically artists. So at Suffolk Libraries, we've really taken a sort of hard look at actually what our role is as that bridge between participant and professional. So we have made a point to work specifically with emerging talent and provide that space for their creative development, and to utilise libraries as that kind of test kitchen for developing their practice, and actually, but with a real focus on kind of community engagement. And why it's really important for us to work with artists is because I think library staff, again going back to that kind of humble thing, I think our library staff and library staff across the UK, I think, are these like Swiss Army knives of human beings. So they're kind of hitting all these buttons around digital inclusion, well-being, mental health, meanwhile just dealing with the day-to-day running of just keeping the library open. And I think what kind of comes from that, trying to be everything to everyone all at once, is also actually there's there's some really fundamental opportunities there to draw in those creative professionals that just know their stuff and can really bring that excellence into those spaces. Like as I was saying, like libraries are that gateway into culture, and so actually we have a lot of responsibility there in terms of people's first experiences of culture. So for example, if their first experience of culture isn't brilliant, that could then lead to then maybe going, oh, actually this isn't for me, and sort of maybe being slightly put off it. But actually holding that space and actually really inviting those artists into that space, it shows that actually this is something that is relevant and available, and it really promotes those opportunities, I think, which is really, really important. Also, like one of the things that is really sort of we really value within our cultural program is actually just understanding who we're not reaching as well. So there's really brilliant opportunities in terms of like thinking really critically about who you're commissioning and why you're commissioning them. I think one of the things that really came across to us and our team last year was when we had the panels from the Living Knowledge Network for Beyond the Baseline, and we were really conscious, like the team that was curating that offer for celebrating Black British music, actually who wasn't in the room, and how could we really like think about that representation within our programming. And the sort of the model that we kind of went for was this kind of not co-production, because the individuals weren't necessarily doing the admin and doing the work, but this kind of co-management process where we worked with a steering group, and we invited that group of professionals from Aspire Black Suffolk to really critique kind of how that program would look and how it would develop. And I think within our team we were kind of like, it's not perfect and it's not exactly what we wanted, but actually like we're really conscious of like it's that we were making those really the right steps in the right direction towards something that we did want to really develop. And because of that collaboration with Aspire Black Suffolk, we've then worked with them to develop a lovely bid, a project grant bid, to develop a wider resource to celebrate Black British music in libraries, which we're really excited about. But I think it's that ongoing thing in terms of commissioning creativities in libraries. We are reaching those wider audiences, and more often we have to kind of come back to this thing of actually, by having those creative experiences in libraries, actually we're creating opportunities to see themselves and see their communities within those spaces, like specifically with young people. So we always come back to this, like, you can't be what you can't see, and young people, I think in the recent Creative UK survey, 75% of 18 to 25-year-olds want to pursue a career in the arts, in the creative professions, but the majority believe that they can't do that, or it's something that's really difficult to get into. So actually that role of libraries within that wider cultural ecology is really important, because it's about opening up those opportunities to young people whose families may not necessarily understand what a career in the creative industries could look like. And it really kind of is rooted in the fundamental role of libraries as that kind of gateway into knowledge and experiences, and that repository of like high quality information. So creativity in libraries, it's brilliant stuff. Get artists in libraries.
Thanks, Melissa. And yes, Melissa has a talking head, and by all means, we can ask Melissa lots of questions at the end. Thank you. Over now to Sue Robinson, who is not Lindsay Wilson, but is Lindsay's colleague, to talk about selecting work for your library.
Good afternoon. Thank you. No, I'm not Lindsay. I'm Sue. I'm the Director of Culturepedia. We're based in Blackburn, Lancashire, and Spot On Lancashire is one of our services. And Lindsay is my program manager, but she's on annual leave at the moment, probably upside down on a roller coaster somewhere in the Netherlands. So I'm speaking for her. I can see, looking through the kind of information, that I've got quite a few colleagues here today from Blackburn with Darwen and Lancashire County Council and Blackpool Library Services joining us. So if I say anything or you want to add anything, I really appreciate your input. Lindsay is the one who has been developing our library service for the last 10 years, and I want to give credit to her. So it's very much her words and her top tips that I'm sharing with you today. So forgive me if I turn away from my screen and I'm looking at a list. I think the first thing to remember is you know, we're all human beings who live and function in the world, and your area of expertise is what you do. And we spend our time in the arts thinking about what we do. But you wouldn't buy a car sight unseen, and you wouldn't just go in and, I don't know, book a holiday without having a quick look at TripAdvisor or checking on a review. So you wouldn't do it with an artist who sent you an email on spec to you saying, you know, you are the most amazing library ever, book my show. You'd probably look around and have a little bit of a think about whether they inspire you or not. So if you are thinking about booking shows, have you seen the artist? Has someone seen them? Have they seen them in another place somewhere on holiday? Have they come in full of excitement? Get some advice. Look at indicators of professionalism. Have they worked with someone you know before? Have they been on another scheme? Are they endorsed by a funder or someone that you can pick the phone up and go, these guys are saying they're the most amazing thing anyway. Can you prove that? And is it a good email? Does it tell you what you want? If they've just sent you a link going, hi, book me, here's my link to YouTube, they're not really making enough effort, I think, and you should probably just move on to another offer. Does the show actually fit your library? If you're lucky enough to have mobile bookshelves, you can move those out the way. Can you fit the audience in as well as the company? Can you fit in the tea and coffee? Thinking about access. So if they're saying they can be flexible, ring them up and ask them if they really can be flexible in their sizing, or whether they've built their set and they haven't thought about getting it through the rotating doors or whatever it is that you have in your library. Really, really grill them on that one. Because if they say they're flexible, the person who turns up might be the technician who hasn't had that conversation with you. And then they'll have a small meltdown, and that wouldn't be nice. So we need to just keep on top of all those little practical things. Is the information make sense? Are they selling you something in plain English where you know what it is? Does it say what it is on the tin? The arts sector is terrible at writing a really bad copy that's all about the designer and, you know, the lighting and everything like that. Is it a play? Is it a dance? Is it going to be funny? Does the story mean something to you? So think about all of those things. If you get lots and lots of artists contacting you because you're a librarian in an Arts Council priority place and you've got a really, really cool postcode, perhaps put a deadline on a website or decide on some kind of process of managing all of that demand that might be coming your way, and be in control of what you need for your space. Think about what you're looking for. It's very easy, I think, for people to think it's children's work because libraries are very full of children's and families, but sometimes they're used to free things, and it's quite hard to make that transition over to saying this is actually a theatre that you're coming into now. And maybe trying music or something that appeals to a different group might be really interesting to try. And you're highly likely you might find someone in your friend's team or a colleague who's really into a particular music form who might get really passionate about the show and how to sell it. Do they do additional activities, workshops, talks? Can you create displays or additional work in your library that helps sell that show? Do you want to see it? We know many librarians are really busy doing your day job. And I know certainly with the colleagues that we've worked in Blackburn and Darwin and all across Lancashire, some of you go really out of your way and give up your time to host an event. And I like to think that's do it because you want to do it. You actually want to see the show. It's a night out and it's something you really engage with. Don't put yourself in a position where you feel you have to do it. And because you won't love selling it. And it's supposed to be about joy and having an escape. So really, really pick on something that really makes you kind of feel, yeah, I want to see this. I want to be the one that makes this happen. If you're not sure, share it around with other people. Put the publicity in front of people going, do you get what this show is? Shall I book it or shan't I? Get lots of different opinions. And talk to the artists and talk to your touring scheme as well, because we have so many artists contacting us, and we know if people are kind of really not really sure what they're selling to you, or they know that they've got the experience, and we can give you a bit of advice on who to talk to. If it feels like it's going to be a hard sell, It probably will be. So move on. There's lots of companies out there. Find the one that you like. And, you know, is it something you would sell to your friend? Would you go to your auntie and say, I know it's my work thing, but do you want to come along and see this show? And I think that's always a good kind of indicator. So I think I've probably rattled through that. Listen to Lindsay's video, and she kind of goes through that. And of course, always just talk to your local scheme. And I'm sure my colleagues from the library services here in Lancashire would be happy to share some of their experiences with you if you want to pick their brains as well. How was that, Natalie?
Thanks. Absolute perfection. Thank you, Sue.
Thank you.
On now to Sophie Clouston from Creative Arts East. She's our Marketing Communications Manager. She's going to talk to you about some top tips for marketing.
Thank you, Nat. So yeah, hello, I'm Sophie Clouston. I just want to start by going back to what Melissa said, which I think is really important about library staff being like a Swiss Army knife. And as an arts partner, we're like very aware of that. And I think when it comes to marketing, it can be really overwhelming because it feels like there's lots and lots to do. But if you just start at the beginning and go through a few of these steps, hopefully it will help you manage it a bit better, because particularly I think around like digital marketing, people can get a bit like, oh my God, I've got to do so much, but actually you don't need to do that much and it can still bring in a really good audience. So before you even get started with your marketing, it's really crucial to firm up any details about the event, because you need to know all of those juicy little bits in advance so that you can start promoting. And when you have that information, also lock in your mind that you need to be giving yourself about 12 weeks in advance. I mean, that's the max, 10 to 8 weeks minimum, to really market an event to its full capacity. So once you have that little framework, you can then get marketing. So you can start thinking about word of mouth. And something quite common that happens is that you get so excited about telling everyone else that you sometimes forget to tell the people in the building, telling your staff, any relief workers or volunteers or people coming and going. Make a little crib sheet or something just with all the key details so that everyone's up to speed. And that's really helpful if you've got visitors coming and going, everyone knows. You then want to think about physical marketing. Again, this can be a bit overwhelming, but this is where arts partners and artists can really help. Usually artists that are used to rural touring know the drill of providing marketing material that can be overprinted, or, here at Creative Arts East, we help our Norfolk crew by providing posters and flyers and helping with the ticketing. So don't be overwhelmed by that, but then you need to start plastering it everywhere possible, all around your building, all around the local town, and just think of all the places you go or that your target audience as well would go, because you'll know that by now. So you'll be thinking about where are these people likely to be visiting and how can I get them to see our event. You then move on to the digital marketing, which I touched on, but the main thing, because of libraries, you're kind of working with families or older people or people that are interested in a sense of community, because that's what the library brings. And most of those people are on Facebook. So you want to invest your time into Facebook because that's where they'll be. So don't worry too much about any other platforms. Something else really, really useful is local what's on listing pages. Again, these are just what's on in King's Lynn, what's on down the road, and listing your event on there will just get it, seen by more people visiting the area. So they're quite useful. I'm conscious I might be waffling, so I'm just going to go on. You can then think about targeted marketing. So you should have events going on in your libraries, like a Bounce and Rhyme or a Stay and Play, a Knit and Natter. And so you've already got an audience in the building that you can give a flyer to, and make sure they don't leave without knowing about your event, because they're in the building now. Make the most of it. As well, you can tie into things that are already happening, like a national event, like National Poetry Day, for example, and use hashtags and things on your socials to get your event up to the top of the hit list, and people will see it. And then make the most of your space. I'm sure all of your libraries have lovely little display areas. You could do, say, if you had a puppet show about dragons, do some little dragon books or things. Make it fun and exciting so that people engage with it, basically. So, and just tell everyone who's passing. Anyway, I hope I haven't really waffled and gone on, but yes,
Great.
Feel free to ask questions.
Thank you, Sophie. Thank all three. I don't know how we're going to handle questions because we've gone slightly over, but
I think Michelle, Michelle jump in, and we'll perhaps take just one question now, and then we'll move on, and then we'll try and catch up a bit at the end, if that's all right, Michelle, just so that we don't lose time. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I think probably one of the most interesting, or the one that is on the lips of most people, is around the pay what you can model and how that's working. I know that Sophie, you've put an answer in the chat. Do you want to just say a little bit more about that, maybe, Sophie?
Yeah, I can do. Yeah, I mean, this is from our experience. We're just managing the sort of ticket. We use a ticket source page to help manage tickets for Norfolk libraries. And we've just found, definitely after COVID, people are booking very late. So like right up to the wire, your audience suddenly bumps up. So just don't be scared if that happens. But they are, yeah, pay what you can model is great, because people, if they see something like Nat said, I think if they see something as free, they're less likely to commit to it. And if they're putting a bit of cash into it, they're like, oh, I've paid for that, so I will turn up, even if it's a couple of quid. So yeah.
Thank you. Like Sarah said, we are running short on time. Can I just say thank you to all of our speakers? It's fascinating, the things that you've been saying, and we really appreciate that you're so generous in sharing your learning with us. There are some things that really stick in my mind. I love the description of library staff being a Swiss Army knife. That's one I will definitely use in the future. I think it's fabulous. And there are some questions in the chat that we will respond to. We'll maybe do a little bit of follow-up feedback as well after the event. Some of the things that you're asking, like when will and where will the training be available, we will cover that during the course of the afternoon. We do have the Learning Pool platform that we're going to have a reminder about. And in there are things like ticketing platforms, and also information around marketing, and licensing was another one that someone's put in the chat. I'm sorry we've not got more time to be able to answer the questions, but we will try and get responses out to you. So Sarah, I'm sorry, I'll hand over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks very much, and thank you. That was really, really fascinating. And yeah, we could have gone on longer, but so apologies for sort of just stopping you in your tracks. But if there are questions that any of you colleagues can answer in the chat, that would be brilliant, like Sophie just did. So thank you for doing that. Just keep doing that. But I'm delighted really to move us on now to Upswing, and Camille Ben-Suzanne from Upswing. She's the executive director of Upswing and co-chair of Outdoor Arts UK, and her organisation is about telling you stories in extraordinary ways, and it says amplifying and celebrating the skills, creative talents and stories of diverse artists and communities. And we've been trying to sort of get together with Upswing. We've been talking to them for ages, so we're really pleased to have them here. And I'm going to hand you straight over to Camille now, who will tell you all about it.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and thank you to Libraries Connected to invite us as artists, as me as a representative of a company, to talk about our work in libraries from our perspective. We are launching a guide, a sort of we called it a guide, but it's really a celebration, a reflection and a provocation for presenting circus in libraries. I'm going to start sharing my screen. Hopefully everyone can see that.
That's lovely. Yeah,
that's great. So thank you for the introduction. I'm Camille, I'm the exec director of Upswing, and you've introduced the company really well. We are an organization that's been working in circus for since 2006, and we are in our nearly 10th year of producing work for libraries and with libraries. Upswing is used the human body as an expressive tool to entertain, to inspire curiosity, to share urgent ideas, and ignite a desire to build connection. We work across art forms. We blend circus with film, with sound, with spoken word, and we hope to create fresh experiences that are relevant and accessible. And we tour our circus theatre shows to traditional performance spaces, but our work is not confined to theatres and festivals. We like to reach people in unexpected ways, wherever they are. That might look like a digital tray for a local park, a circus takeover in a care home, a large-scale spectacle on a rooftop, or a bedtime story in a library. So today I wanted to share a little bit about the work that we've been doing over this last 10 years. But the question is really, why would a circus company want to work in libraries? We have been asked this question many times, and over the years we decided to prepare a little video to answer that question. So I'm going to stop sharing and reshare a video. Just bear with me with the clunkiness of my presentation. Let's try that.
In 2014, we created our first library performance to partner our main touring production, Bedtime Stories. Work followed similar themes and a similar design to Bedtime Stories, but would be performed for free in libraries in the weeks preceding the main performances, with the intention of encouraging new audiences. In one location, a box office was set up within the library. An excess of 300 tickets were sold to people who had not previously attended their local venue. In 2018, we worked with a group of young parents aged 13 to 19. Alongside our artists over 10 weeks, the group created their own new and surprising stories, which our artists brought to life using visual installations, circus, and digital media.
I think it was a really good opportunity for the mums to actually see the show, the end result. And the biggest change, I would say, is the confidence in all the parents, but now they actually realise how important their stories are, which has given them that confidence to share their stories and be confident as young parents. So it was a brilliant opportunity.
Sorry about that. So as well as audience development and participation, libraries have allowed us to research and develop new work, to explore different ways of working, and to meet new communities. This in turn keeps our work fresh, engaging, and relevant, and we can test new ideas. So as a touring company, working in libraries lets us into the local community life. As civic spaces, libraries offer us direct access to the people we want to meet and engage. Libraries remove the barriers such as cost, travel, mistrust, for many who do not usually attend the theatre. For our first library show, Once Upon a Pillow Fight, we had 57% of attenders from medium to low arts engagers. And this is much higher than the rates that we find from when we survey theatre audiences. I think a colleague said 18% early on. So we were very pleased with that. And we believe that that's because circus is a very accessible art form, but also really recognisable and therefore the Circus and libraries are a perfect match in terms of audience development for the arts. As you've seen in the video, we've got disruption in our work. We like to bring wood, we like to bring beds, we like to bring a lot of things. Don't be scared. We always talk in advance before bringing all this stuff. We've had installations, we've done touch tours, we've done a range of things, working with other creatives and using different type of spaces. This is a little bit of an extract from the guide that we're publishing next week with a timeline. I'm just going to save some time and not go through every single show and workshop that we've done over the years, but I think this can be useful in terms of looking at figures and stats and building the case for more circus in more libraries. Just to give you an idea of what it looks like. And these are some images from the work that we've done. So pillow fight at the bottom left, where we did travel with a bunch of mattresses and beds and covers, and we toured several places with this in London and outside of London. This show was our first one. It gave us appetite for more. We created about 6 productions, I think, after that show, and we're about to create a new project for next year, working in Staffordshire. As you can see, we bring circus equipment. That can be scary, but we're very flexible. For example, the image with the person on the rope on this aerial rig is the same rig that you can see in the images with the 2 performers sort of sleeping, which means that we can adapt height and floor space and be very flexible. So what's in it for libraries? Why would you program circus? Why would you go above and beyond and move everything around for us? Well, these are some quotes from colleagues, people mainly from the Brent Library Service. We've been working with them over years, and I'll just let you read them because I don't want to take their voices. Presentation will be shared, I believe, so I'm going to skip through. Some really amazing stats that we've gathered. I wanted to highlight this too because they're very similar, but they're for 2 different productions, so we can see a trend across the work that we do. And something that we've always tried to do is to align with the library's goals and to see where we can add value. Knowing that we brought new audiences to the arts, but also to the library, and that those audiences can potentially turn into users is really exciting for us and really helps us make the case when we look for funding. I must add that all our productions have been offered free of charge. We've never really used a box office kind of for the library work. We've used the library work to sell tickets to the indoor shows in theatres, but in general, our shows have been free. I think the offer of pay what you can is great because it allows people who can afford it to do so and say thank you, I suppose. The reason why we created the guide is because we had a 3-year project called Seasons, which took us from a very early beginning from a holiday activity that was called Pitch. We brought the wonders of nature and camping into a library in Brent. And it was so popular, we had to turn people away. We didn't have enough space in the library. We had to close the doors. And we also noticed that many children had never experienced natural objects or hadn't spent much time, if any, in the countryside. And so at the end of the project, we got back to our funder, the John Lyons charity, and we wanted to discuss how we could put a bid together to deliver a longer project that would be embedded in the borough, but that would also feature really strong environmental themes. And we worked in partnership with the council, with the library service, and at the time it was Borough of Culture. And we built a proposal to John Lyons Charity to deliver family and schools workshops, to create an online activity hub that would live beyond the time of the project, and some resources for schools, and finally a live performance that would be touring libraries. So the project was funded. We got funding from John Lyons Charity, the Borough of Culture Fund, the London Community Foundation, and some funding from our own NPO funding from Arts Council. And over 3 years, we engaged families and schools in developing the ideas for the show. We did seed workshops around the seasons, using different crafts and different creatives that came and explored texture or set or sound or movement. And we, sorry, waffling. And we also worked really closely with Sarah Smith from the library to align with what they were already doing in the library. For example, the Summer Reading Challenge and some of the objectives and focus of the council as a whole. The online hub turned out to be a really useful thing because it happened during the pandemic and during lockdown. So we were able to pause the project and shift to digital. So instead of delivering activity in the library, we went and created some films. We worked with a spoken word artist that would create activity that would bring circus movement into some adventures for families to take outside themselves, without us, without the library, without the need to be next to each other, and follow the guidelines at the time. With school pupils, we created the learner resources, so we did further workshops to understand what would be useful to the teachers, what would be useful to the students, using Circus to learn about nature, the natural world, the seasons, geography in general, and fit a lot of things from the curriculum into the resources and vice versa. We've now got a dedicated page on our website where those resources are free to download. So over the life of the project, we engaged with 900 children and 150 adults in the creation of the show and the resources, and we reached over 1,600 audiences across 60 shows for seasons. And I'm now going to do my little sharing magic again and show you the trailer for seasons. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed that. Seasons. So some practical tips from our point of view, from the touring company's point of view, and Circus in specifically, is health and safety. It's Circus is risky. We do put people up in the air. We do acrobatics, but we are professionals. We know what we're doing, and actually, we're very good at risk management. So organize site visits, request our method statements and risk assessments. We've got them. You know, everyone feels more confident and therefore more relaxed. Location. So if it's a borrow-buy project, you know, which library is best suited. What kind of floor do you have? Maybe softer flooring would be more suited for acrobatics. And again, you know, bringing schools into the mix. Who's closest to the schools? We know that a big barrier for schools engagement is transport. And also from my kind of Outdoors UK hat on, I would like to say we could do it outside. Performances outside are possible, obviously weather dependent, but it always links back to who's put on the show and to the library itself. How some, you know, I think Sophia was due to talk about the display and all the other kind of things that can be done from a library point of view. How do we sort of fit in the wider theme of the library? Can there be some areas showing some books that are really specific to the topics of the show? Or should we let teachers kind of borrow some books and get classes to kind of start borrowing? Flexibility is always key, you know, rearranging the space, coming up with a cupboard for storage, or, you know, how do we do changing room for costumes and all that kind of thing. But really, we also are understanding of the limitation of spaces. So I think these practical tips are applicable to both the touring companies and to the libraries programming us. So yeah, the key learnings, I think I'm repeating what colleagues have said previously, but that seems to be the theme for today. Partnership working is crucial. I think we need to align how we work and really embracing a co-producing approach to make sure there's commitment and understanding from both the company and the library. And yeah, aligning values and goals will always yield the best impact. Circus is a loaded word. You know, you hear the music, you see the clowns, you get the red noses. The minute you say circus, people have misconceptions about what it is, especially with the contemporary form. So again, communication is really important. Taking the time to get to know each other, to establish trust is very important. We met caretakers, we met security teams, we met managers, you know, and once we had 100% buy-in from everybody, we were really confident that everything could go smoothly, and it did. Yeah, so I've shared some stats with you and some data and some videos, and all that would be in the guide. I'm going to put a link to an online version in the chat, so you can take a look before everybody else. And we will be sharing the presentation later on as well. But I hope this has inspired you to program Circus, you know, not just Upswing, but any others. And apparently I saw an image early on, somebody was doing an acrobatic move on a log. So we're not the only ones doing that. Yeah, really happy to share more insight and knowledge, and yeah, reach out to me if you need anything. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Camille. That was fabulous, and yeah, I love that the seasons with everyone in their little teepees and watching what was going on around us. They're very appealing, and also I think both you and Rekindle have shown just demonstrated that flexibility that is so important in libraries, because our spaces are all so very different. So understanding that, I think, is really amazing. But also it's amazing that you can bring all that equipment with you to just give children and young people and families who perhaps don't get to those kind of bigger performances a really high quality and a really special performance. I can imagine it's the sort of thing they'll remember forever, actually, seeing those. There were a few, I think you touched on the funding questions particularly, but could you just clarify exactly how your performances are funded and what costs there are to libraries?
Oh, chasing the money is hard.
Yes.
We're lucky to be an Arts Council national portfolio organisation, so our core is funded. So we reach out to funders for projects and to be able to tour the work. Sometimes I like to say that I'm funded to fundraise. And that's what I do. But with the projects that we've done in libraries, the very first project was a commission from another NPO who were the Word Festival in Islington, working across different libraries, and were managed by another organisation called All Change. It was not much money. It was £5,000 to create a show and tour it in 3 different locations. But we made it work with a little bit of resources that we wanted to put in, knowing that once we create a show, we can tour it again and again and again. There were other instances where, like the Seasons project, we started small with a funder. We had the John Lyons charity give us a holiday fund, which was, again, not very much, but we had some assets and we had some things that we could bring together. But from there, it snowballs, really. It's about the partnerships and where you can reach out. And I think we made a really strong case to the John Lyons charity when we showed that we had several meetings with the library service, with the council, that we'd been working in that area for a long time. The community fund that we got was actually the Wembley Community Fund that was administered by the London Community Foundation. So we looked at local, very local, hyper local kind of funding. I think there's a strong case for sponsorship as well. We haven't kind of gone into this, but this is something to link up with, for example, business improvement districts and other colleagues like that. I suppose project grants is always a possibility. So different avenues, from trust and foundations to private investment and a lot of in-kind support.
Yeah. And there was a question in the chat about Scotland, and do you, I mean, obviously your touring is obviously like Rekindle is you're an NPO and funded by Arts Council, but do you have a wider remit around touring, or would you tour to Scotland and around and the home nations? Yeah,
absolutely. We are. I would like just to think that we're an international touring company. I mean, the major productions that we do, Princess and the Pea, which was one of the images, we did a remount with the Unicorn and the New Vic in Stoke-on-Trent of Princess and the Pea, a non-verbal version, very circus, very physical, that toured in London, in Staffordshire, and on Broadway in New York.
wow.
We've had interest from the Sydney Opera House to take it next. And I know that some of those venues are attracted to our family offer because we often have a library version of the indoor touring work. We've discussed this with many colleagues, so Scotland doesn't feel far at all. We'd love to go to Scotland.
Yeah, well, sure. Yeah, going to Sydney is yeah. And I do love that the library being almost like the catalyst to go into bigger venues, and the library being part of that whole ecology of the arts is fantastic. I'm going to pause there because we've got one more speaker to go. If we've got time at the end, we'll come back to the questions for both Rekindle and Upswing, if that's okay. But just for now, to just say a huge thank you, Camille. That was fantastic. Thanks for the films as well, and well done for showing them and keeping it all going. It was very seamless, so congratulations on that. And I just want to now introduce Becky. Becky Scott, who's a Libraries Connected colleague, and she's been looking at the learning pool module that we've been talking about throughout this, that was actually kicked off and written for us originally by Rural Touring. So it's with Creative Arts East. So we were really pleased to have them on the call today. Becky's been doing some updating of it because it was written during lockdown, so there were some things that are no longer relevant in it because thankfully the world's moved on a bit since then. So we wanted to keep the core of it because it was really excellent. And so Becky, I'm going to hand over to you to talk about what you've been doing.
organising myself. There we go. Thank you, everyone. Good afternoon. And wow, how can I possibly follow that amazing performance from Seasons? But regardless, I'm really happy to introduce to you the refreshed version of the Libraries Connected Culture and Creativity module. I would like to give thanks to my colleague Lauren, who has been tirelessly working with me over the last few weeks to update the module. So the module takes you through the kind of 3 key stages of running and programming a cultural or creative event in your library. So you will work through the planning stages, the delivery stages, and the evaluating. And you've heard quite a lot about some of those elements today already. So, for example, thinking about how you might go about commissioning an artist. Do you do an open call? Do you draw on someone who already have a partnership with? So the first part of the module takes you through those planning stages. Which audience are you interested in targeting? Is it families? Is it a particular group that you want your library to connect to? And then it goes into the delivery part of the project. So thinking about the communication, we heard lots of that from Camille. So in the actual managing of the event, are big pieces of equipment going to arrive? Do you know when? Have you got that liaison with the artists you're working with? Do you know where you're going to store the equipment and so on? How is it going to be kept safe while they're not using it? So all of the kind of logistical things, as well as the marketing timeline. So thinking about when the communications go out within your own organisation, but then making sure you reach potential audiences. And then managing the event on the day and the different staff who might be involved in making it all come together and really sing for the community that is in your library. And then finally, it moves on to talking about the evaluation, making sure you have already planned for in the beginning how you're going to gather the feedback and the impact of your event so that you can build more cultural events and use that evidence when you are applying for future funding bids to show that you can really deliver on this cultural offer for your community. So the refreshed module has 6 new case studies in it. That will hopefully develop your learning around your programming and give you some inspiration of different ideas that you might be interested to take forward. So the first one is from a Library Connected project, the Culture Nature England project, and the example is from Hartlepool, and it's around a nature trail and using nature and the natural environment local to the library to create sort of creative activities with artists. Then there's a kind of smaller case study. Perhaps you're not ready to expand your programming out yet, or you've got limited funding. So there's a small case study from Shoe Lane Library talking about how they're bringing guest speakers around particular creative and cultural themes. For example, there was one recently about Black British music and the Royal Albert Hall. The case study from Warwickshire Libraries is based around a project they've had with different audiences, but this particular one is about working with the community that is Romani, Gypsy and traveller communities and working with local schools to support that community, looking at data from their local area and working with public health. So again, using artists to work with their local audiences. Then obviously you've already heard a bit about Black British Ballet and how that's an example of a touring exhibition that involves dance, story and so on. So that example will hopefully inspire you too. And then Coventry Libraries have a case study that is about using VR as a creative activity, engaging people with film. So there are so many different cultural or creative activities that you could use for programming in your library. And so the final case study is from Inspire Nottingham, and theirs is an art sculpture trail and an artist who's working with 100 different organisations to create a really grand scheme, but Nottingham were the first partner organisation for that particular sculpture trail. And in that case, they were using children's drawings to inspire the creation of the sculptures. So many different wonderful examples that will hopefully inspire your practice, but also help you learn about cultural programming as you move through the module. The final activity in the module is so inspiring because it uses a video from Creative Arts East called Jump In, and it's kind of similar to Seasons in that it's so inspiring to watch such a short video, but it will help you reflect on your learning and think about all of the things you need to do in order to make sure your cultural activity is a success for your library and your community. So most importantly then, how do you go about accessing the module? This will be a question I'm sure is jumping through in the chat. So the link in my slides, I'm going to put these in the chat anyway. The first one is to the actual website where you can access the e-learning. But if you haven't got an account yet, you need an enrolment key. So you'll need to contact the information email address at Libraries Connected and they can create it for you. So I'm going to stop sharing and then I'm just going to post these into the chat for you. And I'm happy to take a question if there is one.
Ever so much, Becky, for that. Are there any questions for Becky in the chat? You've got the invite, that's great. So the invite Libraries Connected is your key email address that you to get hold of that. But I would sort of encourage you, because I think, you know, it's been a powerful module over the years, and you know, to have a refresh of some of the case studies is really helpful as well. And as Michelle said right at the beginning of this webinar, one of the things that came out quite strongly from the survey was people wanting help with sort of creating programs and programming and all those sort of hints and tips that we've had so much of today. So you know, do go onto the module, especially if you've got staff who haven't done it, new staff since the module was launched. Do let them have a go at that. I think we haven't got any more questions. I think there was one question from Narinda which has been answered very well about, you know, where do you get hold of, you know, what's going on, what kind of opportunities you can get. And so yeah, thank you very much, Natalie. You've posted some suggestions in the chat, and again, I think if we get hold of any from coming through Libraries Connected, it's great if we can kind of share them with you, so that you've got, you know, we're not endorsing them or anything else at them, but it would be an opportunity for you just to be aware of what's going out there. So and also, yes, thanks Becky for all the toolkit resources linked to the module, and thank you both to Camille and to Natalie for posting all your toolkit resources in the chat as well. Camille, when will your toolkit actually, your toolkit's going to be actually released next week, so can we share it wider at that point?
Yes, absolutely. We've just got an online version which is more kind of online friendly, where you can flick through it with the videos that are embedded in it. So that's the link I've shared. Sorry, the URL isn't sexy at all. We couldn't change it, but at least the document itself is very usable. And we'll also have a page on our website with a downloadable PDF. So if people want to take it offline, share it in different ways, you know, we understand that it's not always good to have a publication online. So we'll be launching our website page with everything and all the links to Seasons, the learner resources and the digital hub, where you can see all the films and everything else that we talk about in the publication.
Fantastic, thank you. And we'll share that widely. We'll share the link to this recording as well for people that couldn't come today, and then we'll share that and make sure that we know about that as well. And Natalie, is there anything else you want to add? I know I'm conscious that you know you covered an awful lot in your presentation, which was brilliant, but I don't know if there's anything else that's come up through the chat or you wanted to kind of respond to, or any of your colleagues.
I mean, there's lots going on in the chat. It's really thrilling, actually. And it's mainly, I think, about connectivity and how do we, you know, expand past English boundaries? How do we, you know, find out more? There's a really good question that's just come up, which is about, is there anything specifically aimed at prison libraries? And I'd be thrilled to have more of a conversation about that, because I think, you know, knowing what prison libraries need as distinct from a public library would be really helpful for artists and organisations working to produce in this way. So perhaps there's more questions that we would have for Bridget around, well, what are the particular requirements and the barriers that might need to be overcome, other than the obvious ones. But I can think of a couple of artists actually that we've been working with recently who are actively trying to work in prison. So Bridget, I can connect you that way for sure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, lovely. Thank you, Natalie. Okay, so I think we've got 3 minutes left. So I'm just making sure that we've covered loads of stuff. So thank you to everyone who's been answering the questions in the chat as well. That's been really, really, really helpful, and often happens in our webinars that we get lots of almost like a separate webinar going on in the chat with lots of answers and people sharing their own experiences. So yeah, thank you for that. Michelle, do you want to add anything before we close?
I think just picking up on the prison libraries question, there is some really fantastic things that are happening in our prison libraries, and some of it is shared through the prison libraries group, but I think there's probably more that as a culture and creativity group that we can do, and more connections that we can make between arts organisations and prison libraries. So we'll certainly take that thinking back to the group. And I do know that the British Library are doing some work on libraries and prison libraries and the arts. They've just put an application in for some funding that will help do some research into that. So we'll share that with everyone as well as we get more information and we know whether the bid has been successful. But aside from that, I just wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming. It's just fascinating listening to all of the wonderful things that happen in our public libraries and the relationships that we're building with different arts and culture organisations. And it's lovely to hear from the arts and culture organisations about your experiences of working with public libraries, because for us, that's learning as well. And anything that we can do to make it a better experience, we're really keen to do that. So thank you everybody for participating. It has been fascinating, and I've definitely got some new ideas that I'm going to be following up as well. Can I just check, Sarah? I should know this, but do we have a section on Basecamp that is for culture and creativity, or do we use the other channels that we've got on Basecamp?
We don't. We just use the standard channels, but you know,
Yeah.
I'm wondering whether we or whether there's something. I mean, we're thinking about our CRM as well and how we use that, and whether there's something, because I think that, you know, being aware of what's available is really important, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
so yeah, it might be
Yeah.
something we could take forward as well. So yeah, no, that's
And I
really
think
good.
being able to share some of the good experiences that we have with commissioning and who we're working with is really important.
Yeah.
I think, Natalie, you picked up a question earlier about what to look out for, and it is really important because you can do a lot of harm if it goes wrong.
Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's 15:30, so we'll finish on time. So thank you all for yeah, keeping to time and also catching up as well. So really appreciate that. I just wanted to thank Michelle. Michelle, thanks so much for chairing that and also for the presenting around the culture and creativity offer and what's going on. And Natalie, Melissa, Sue and Sophie, thank you so much for that fascinating presentation, and all the work that you've been doing is amazing. And Camille, lovely to see that all those circus skills in action and you know what is possible in a library. And Becky, thank you, and to you and to Lauren for doing all the work that you've done on the learning module. And also I don't know if Lauren's here, but thank you to Lauren who set up the webinar and has done all the admin for it. So yes, and thank you to all of you. Thanks for all of that really active chat. We love it when there's lots going on in the chat and people are really responding. So yeah, thank you. And somebody once said to me in a webinar, let yourself out when you're ready. And so that's what I'm going to say to you, just to say a big thank you for everyone for coming along, and let yourselves out when you're ready. And maybe if the speakers could just stay on, we could just have a quick catch up at the end if you've got a minute to stay on.
I'm so sorry, Sarah. I've got to go catch a flight, so I will.
No, don't worry. Don't worry. Yeah, don't worry. Do go.
Thanks so much,
Yeah,
though.
thank you.
Bye.
Thanks,
We'll be in
Melissa.
touch.
Bye.
Thanks, Melissa. Bye. We should say thank you to you too, Sarah. Thanks so much.
Yes, absolutely.
And to you, Michelle.
organising us all and keeping us together.
It's very cool to be going off to catch a flight, isn't it?
I know, isn't it? I hope it's somewhere nice and exciting.
Yeah, and less rainy than here at the moment.
Yeah.
Should we remove those who are?
I was just going to say, shall I put them in the waiting room?
Yeah, that'd be good. And just to say goodbye to everyone, and thanks to everyone for their participation. I think sometimes people it gets a bit stuck, doesn't it? It's an odd thing. All of this, isn't it? Yeah, that's us all. So yeah, just to say thank you. Really, I just wanted to thank everyone for doing that. It was great. So
it was good, and I think they will all get a lot out of it.
Yeah, I mean, you can always tell, I think, when people are really like putting in loads of questions, and yeah, I think that's always a sign that the webinar's going well. So yeah, so is there anything from your perspectives that you'd like us to take forwards for all of you speakers?
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just say sorry that I was the one that ran over time after I'd said to you.
Oh no, it was
absolutely fine.
And then I realised I had all this sort of. I could have done with losing a couple more slides. So
it was fabulous.
But if you would be willing to share that PDF, that PowerPoint as a PDF, I'd be very happy to try to turn it into a PDF if that's easier. And the talking heads, and maybe any of those key questions that we I feel like they were all really well answered in the chat by multiple contributors. But if there were things that maybe need to be drawn out more, then we could do more of a job on it if helpful.
No, that would be really good, wouldn't it? So yeah, we'll save the chat, and then
yeah, I think the one that was difficult to answer in the chat was around licensing, aside from saying speak to local authority. But they need a bit more practical. I think what they were asking for was a bit more practical support around that, but I'm sure we cover it in. You probably know, Natalie.
Well, yeah, I can speak to that. It's very minimal, what the content in the module related to licensing. I think it pretty much does say, speak to your local expert.
Right, okay.
So, I mean,
with variances actually, and it depends what it is that you're promoting. There's all sorts of different licenses.
Yeah.
We could do a bit of a job at Creative Arts Eastern with our Royal Touring colleagues on sort of doing a bit of a fact-finding sheet, if that would be helpful from a Rekindle point of view. We could maybe gather some key points.
It's always a challenge, isn't it? Whatever, there's always a challenge for libraries, I think. So, and that sort of uncertainty can be a barrier. So anything you can do would be helpful.
Also, I suppose most of them are within local authorities, aren't they? Or am I wrong? So they should.
No,
they've
are.
got the first point of contact.
Absolutely.
Camille, it would be wonderful if we could have permission to share Upswing's resource as part of this sort of, holder of all the wonderful guidance information. I know that Libraries Connect will do that, but if we at CAE can signpost to your work, it would be really incredible.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, we want to share it as wide, and I think what was interesting for me speaking sort of after your team and hearing from the project was, that I was bringing the sort of artist perspective into it, but actually saying the same thing. And at first I was like, oh gosh, I'm going to have to cut a lot of things from my presentation, and not only because of time, but also because of sort of repetition. But actually it does reinforce the case, and it does reinforce, especially around marketing, and it's quite a big feature in the guide that we talk about how it's really important to get together and really sort of, you know, make the most of what artists can offer, but in terms of expertise around who to sell it for, changing the copy, that it needs to be worked on, it needs the time. And so that was really interesting to hear exactly the same things that we've got in our publication, but being said from another perspective, and actually just thinking, it made me feel happy and sad at the same time. Sad because I felt like we work in isolation at times, doing the same thing. But I think for this webinar, it was really useful to have an artist perspective, and
Definitely.
Sue, when you were talking about, it's like, select them really carefully. Do they have any experience? I was like, read it.
Don't just take the first leaflet that comes through your door, you know, have a right route about. Because we've been immersed in it for 10 years and we're part of Rekindle and all the work we've been doing, I've been really taken aback by some of the basic questions that have been asked. And it feels to me that in a way that's also encouraging, that there's so much more room for growth as well that can happen. You know, to have a library service just up the road from me ask, how do I get involved in this, when I know the partner on their doorstep they can work with is immediately a kind of interesting thing that we can pick up on. So it was illuminating, really, to see some of those questions.
What was something that I was thinking about during the webinar was, in one place, for when we taught seasons, we actually we were approached by a festival, Kensington and Chelsea Festival, and they said, we won the show, and we said, we will bring the show to you, and actually we will bring it to you free, but it has to be performed in a library. So we then kind of had the festival get in contact with the library service to find out which library was available, because it was part of our funding that we needed to tour libraries in certain places. And that worked really well, because I think that collaboration went on to beyond us and presenting more work. And now the library is is a venue of that festival, when they wouldn't have worked together before. So we tried to do it in Hull, but it didn't happen. We ended up in a sports hall. That was a long time ago.
I remember that coming my way.
Yeah, that was back to ours. We had the main show, and we wanted to do a small show.
Yeah, yes, that makes sense now.
But you know, and being in Great Yarmouth last week, and I think the reception in the local library was, I was again thinking, you know, some shows could have happened in the library, and I'm always thinking, for me, outdoor arts, public arts, the libraries are part of that. They're just covered.
Yeah,
but they are public spaces. You can go in and out the same as you can in the street, and actually some streets are private now, so they're not in public places.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that has come up in this webinar that we've been sort of exploring, certainly in Norfolk, but with our national partners as well, is outside of the library walls. You know, does a library exist even if the door is closed? And the answer, frankly, is yes, right? And so as soon as we've sort of said to some of our library manager partners, well, this could be an outdoor piece, it could be presented by the library, but it's outside of its walls, they've been like, oh yeah, well, we could do that. But also the idea of marketing outside, I mean, that has been a fundamental game changer, that we've been saying you should be putting libraries in the fish and chip flyers in the fish and chip shop, but because you know, otherwise you're not reaching people who wouldn't ordinarily come across the threshold. And there's something that we do need to do in this next 12 months around, yes, licensing, the funding model. Do library staff really understand about the sort of economics of culture and where it's coming from and how it's funded, but also, you know, how to think outside of their walls, but still be the library. You know, there's a thing about it's within our box or it's not.
When you were both doing your presentations, it did occur to me, we run an outdoor children's literature festival in June each year. And what you were talking about, I was thinking, you know, this would be fabulous at our festival. But yes, even just as a one-off piece outside of the festival time, it would be wonderful to be able to look at outdoor as well. One of the, I think it was Redbridge, that with the Black British Ballet project, they took the performance to an outdoor space, and that was really well received. And it doesn't mean that it loses the connectivity with the library, but I think sometimes library staff worry that it will. People won't know it's the library. So yeah, I think there's lots
It's about
of
branding is really important, and again, like communication around who, and even if the tickets are free or pay what you can, you know, I think with Eventbrite, what we've done is just for capacity reason, we've had to book your free ticket on Eventbrite. And then there you kind of, again, by doing that, you can promote who's organizing it and get who's behind it. I know that in the Staffordshire Moorland, the CPP Outside has been working with mobile libraries and doing tours with shows and the mobile library.
Interesting.
And I think maybe a mobile library could exist outside of rural settings.
Yeah.
That would
High
be
streets,
really
park up.
be a great project.
Yeah. That sounds great.
Tour was the library, you know. There's one van for the show, one van for the books.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like a because I think there are some interesting there was a library that had I can't remember who it was that had a canal boat. They sort of hired a canal boat, had an Arts Council funding, and they toured with
that was Super Slow Way.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
And they worked with Lancashire Library Services.
Right, that was it. Yeah. That was it.
It was cool.
Yeah, that was brilliant. And yeah, there's a few kind of libraries getting out into really sort of creative spaces. And the National Poetry Libraries wants to actually commission a mobile library to tour 10 ports I think it's next year, as part of their celebrations, and connect back to the library and do really creative stuff around poetry in those port areas using a mobile library. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities. I think we just have to be really kind of think creatively about it, don't we? And it's about getting out into those communities. And Camille, I was going to ask you actually, because you were talking about the people that you reach that are people that have had less engagement with culture. How do you measure that? Do you do surveys of the participants? And
we do surveys. We've become quite good at doing surveys over time. We've tested so many different ways. So there are, you know, if we have booking links, we can email people with a survey. When it's small groups, paper form, we do it with them, but we just bring external, like volunteers or people who have not been in the show or visible to, so that, you know, honesty and can be in the survey. I mean, surveys are always, you know, going to be either the people who love it or the people who hate it that fill them in. But we find that QR codes are really useful, actually. You know, thanks to the pandemic, they were really unpopular before. They did not work. They're now actually useful and used. We find that instead of having posters with QR codes, handing really small slips, like sort of business
card
size, with just a QR code and saying, help us fund our work by answering questions. Just that phrase sort of summarizes why we need the information.
That's good.
Quite often we found that in libraries there were a lot of adults using first language communication who had difficulties with that, so that it was really important to have the kids around to translate for their parents. We couldn't have translators for all the different languages. Some of them, especially in some London boroughs, were just wow, too many to count. But we found that the handing slips rather than putting posters with QR codes is something that works very well.
Exciting.
You can take it home, and then you find it at home, and you kind of go, "Oh yeah, I remember this."
Yeah, and just and I think mobile phones these days make it much easier to scan QR codes, don't they? They're just a camera and it's done, rather than having to
Yeah.
a QR code reader
Yeah.
and you used to have to do. So yeah.
Yeah, quite often we ask people not to take their phones out to take pictures. So then suddenly asking everyone to take their phones out is a little bit
Yeah.
contradictory, and
Yeah.
we feel that
I'm
if
really
we
sorry.
know-
Can I just interrupt because I've got to dash? I'm really
Yeah,
sorry.
of course, and I
thank
could
you.
talk about surveys for a long time.
Yes, we
So
could go.
please help me
I've
out.
really enjoyed meeting you all, and hopefully I'll
Thanks,
see you all
Michelle.
again.
Yeah, thank you
I've got
very
to
much.
go as well. I've got a school run to do, but thank you
Yeah,
so much.
same here.
Yeah, thanks everybody. We'll jump
Thank
on.
you.
We'll talk
Lovely to
again
meet you all.
soon.
Bye.
Yeah.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye everyone. Bye.
Bye, Sarah. Bye, bye, Becky.
Bye. Thanks, Becky. Cheers.